Two of the most talked about alternative housing options in 2026 are going head-to-head in this video, and I'm going to settle the debate with actual numbers rather than opinions. On one side you have the Earthship, the recycled tire and passive solar home that promises zero utility bills, off-grid independence, and a home that heats and cools itself using nothing but the sun. On the other side you have the Barndominium, the metal building shell turned living space that has taken over rural America and social media simultaneously, promising faster builds, flexible layouts, and dramatically lower construction costs than conventional homes. Both of these options have passionate communities behind them. Both have been hyped to the point where the reality has been buried under the enthusiasm. And both have genuine financial advantages that deserve honest examination rather than tribal loyalty. Here is what nobody is telling you about this comparison. The Barndominium and the Earthship are not actually competing for the same buyer. They solve different financial problems in different ways and for different households. The person who should build a Barndominium is genuinely not the same person who should build an Earthship, and the financial comparison between them is far more nuanced than the YouTube comment section arguments suggest. But here is what makes this comparison genuinely interesting in 2026. When you extend the analysis beyond the build cost and look at the total 10-year and 20-year financial picture, one of these options pulls dramatically ahead of the other in a way that most people never calculate because they are only looking at the upfront number. I have done that calculation. I have run the real numbers on both options for a comparable build in 2026, and the result surprised me. Stay with me until the end because the final section of this video contains the total 20-year cost comparison that changes everything about how you should be thinking about this decision. If you want the kind of honest financial analysis of alternative housing that actually helps you make better decisions rather than just validating what you already believe, this channel is exactly where you need to be. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications because I cover the real economics of alternative and off-grid building in 2026 with more depth and honesty than anywhere else on this platform. Now let us get into the numbers. What we are actually comparing. Before I give you any numbers, I need to establish exactly what we are comparing because vague comparisons produce meaningless conclusions. For this analysis, I am using two specific builds that are as comparable as possible in terms of size and location. Build A is a 1,200 square foot owner-built Earthship in the American Southwest using the Refuge model design with vertical glass south wall, passive solar thermal mass heating and cooling, rainwater harvesting, composting waste system, and a complete off-grid solar electrical system. The builder is contributing significant personal labor and using a hybrid approach with professionals hired only for licensed technical work. Build B is a 1,200 square foot Barndominium on equivalent rural land in the same general region, using a standard commercial steel building shell with spray foam insulation, conventional stick-framed interior walls, a standard grid-connected electrical service, municipal well water or a drilled well, a conventional septic system, and a propane heating and cooling system. The Barndominium is built by a general contractor with the owner managing the project but not contributing significant skilled labor. Both builds are on comparable rural land purchased at current 2026 pricing. Both are intended as primary residences. Both are built to be livable, comfortable, and finished rather than shells or works in progress. This is the most honest comparison I can make, and I am going to hold both options to the same standard throughout. The Barndominium cost reality in 2026. The Barndominium has been sold to a lot of people in the last several years on the promise of dramatically cheaper construction costs than conventional homes. That promise is partially true and partially marketing, and the distinction matters enormously for your financial planning. The steel shell of a Barndominium, the kit building that goes up first and gives the structure its distinctive profile, is genuinely economical. A commercial steel building package sized for a 1,200 square foot living space in 2026 costs between $18,000 and $35,000 for the kit, including the steel frame, wall panels, roof panels, and basic hardware. This is the number that gets featured in the social media posts and the YouTube thumbnails, and it is real. What the thumbnails do not show you is everything that turns that steel shell into an actual home. Foundation and concrete slab for a 1,200 square foot barndominium runs $15,000 to $25,000 depending on soil conditions and regional concrete pricing. Electrical rough-in, panel, and grid connection or generator system runs $8,000 to $18,000. Plumbing rough-in and fixture installation for kitchen and bathrooms runs $6,000 to $14,000. Spray foam insulation to make the steel shell thermally adequate runs $8,000 to $15,000. Interior framing, drywall, and finish work runs $12,000 to $20,000. HVAC system including propane furnace, ductwork, and air conditioning unit runs $8,000 to $16,000. Windows and exterior doors run $4,000 to $8,000. Kitchen and bathroom fixtures and cabinetry run $10,000 to $20,000. Septic system installation runs $4,000 to $9,000. Drilled well if no municipal water available runs $8,000 to $15,000. Site preparation, gravel driveway, and basic landscaping runs $3,000 to $8,000. Add all of that together for a finished, livable 1,200 square foot barndominium built by a contractor in the American Southwest in 2026, and the honest total sits between $106,000 and $203,000. The midpoint for a well-managed barndominium build with a competent contractor and no major surprises is approximately $135,000 to $150,000. That is still substantially less than the average new conventional home construction cost in most American markets in 2026, which sits between $220,000 and $350,000 for a comparable size. The barndominium does deliver on its promise of cost savings over conventional construction. The question is how it compares to the Earthship on both upfront cost and long-term economics. The Earthship cost reality in 2026. The Earthship has its own set of numbers that get oversimplified in online conversations, usually in the opposite direction from the barndominium. While barndominiums get underpriced because people only quote the steel shell cost, Earthships sometimes get underpriced because people quote builds that happened a decade ago in jurisdictions with no permitting requirements on land that cost almost nothing. For our hybrid owner-built refuge model Earthship in the American Southwest in 2026, the honest upfront cost breaks down as follows. Land at equivalent rural pricing matches the barndominium scenario. Design and permitting runs $3,000 to $8,000 for a jurisdiction that accommodates alternative construction. Foundation and bond beam runs $3,500 to $5,500. Tire wall materials with tires sourced free and cob infill purchased run $1,500 to $3,000. Roof structure and metal roofing runs $5,500 to $10,000. South glazing from commercial vertical glass sourced directly runs $5,000 to $12,000. Solar and electrical system before the 30% federal tax credit runs $7,000 to $13,000, and after the tax credit $5,000 to $9,000. Water system including cistern, pump, and filtration runs $4,000 to $10,000. Composting toilet and gray water system runs $1,200 to $2,500. Interior earthen plaster and finish materials run $3,000 to $8,000. Miscellaneous tools, fasteners, and contingency run $3,000 to $6,000. Total all-in material and professional fee cost for our owner-built hybrid Earthship, not including land, sits between $44,200 and $87,000. The realistic midpoint for a well-executed owner-built Earthship with good material sourcing and a favorable permitting environment is approximately $60,000 to $75,000. This means that on upfront build cost alone, the owner-built Earthship is significantly cheaper than the contractor-built barndominium. The Earthship's upfront cost advantage over the barndominium in our comparison sits at approximately $60,000 to $90,000. But upfront cost is only one dimension of this comparison, and it is not the most important one. The operating cost comparison, where the real money is. This is the section that most people skip when they compare alternative housing options, and it is the section that changes everything about the financial conclusion. A home is not a purchase. It is a 30 to 50-year financial commitment, and the monthly and annual costs of living in it dwarf the upfront construction cost over any significant time horizon. The barndominium in our comparison is connected to the grid, heated by propane, cooled by a conventional air conditioning system, and supplied with water from a drilled well with an electric pump. Its annual operating costs in the American Southwest in 2026 are real and significant. Electricity for lighting, appliances, water pump, and general household use runs approximately $1,200 to $2,400 per year depending on lifestyle and local utility rates. Propane for heating runs approximately $800 to $2,000 per year depending on climate severity and heating season length. Air conditioning electricity cost adds approximately $600 to $1,400 per year in the Southwest. Well pump electricity and maintenance adds approximately $200 to $400 per year. Septic maintenance including pumping every 3 to 5 years averages approximately $300 per year over time. Total annual operating cost for our barndominium, approximately $3,100 to $6,200 per year. Over 10 years that is $31,000 to $62,000. Over 20 years that is $62,000 to $124,000. The Earthship in our comparison has no grid electricity bill because the solar system generates all power needed. It has no propane bill because the passive solar thermal mass system handles heating and cooling without mechanical systems. It has no water bill because the rainwater harvesting system provides all household water. It has no sewer bill because the composting and gray water system handles all waste. Its annual operating costs are genuinely minimal. Solar system maintenance including occasional component replacement averages approximately $300 to $500 per year over the system's life. Composting toilet maintenance costs approximately $100 to $200 per year. Earthship structural maintenance including plaster touch-ups averages approximately $200 to $400 per year. Total annual operating cost for our Earthship, approximately $600 to $1,100 per year. Over 10 years that is $6,000 to $11,000. Over 20 years that is $12,000 to $22,000. The annual operating cost difference between the barndominium and the Earthship is approximately $2,500 to $5,100 per year in the Earthship's favor. The 20-year total cost comparison. Here is the calculation I promised you at the beginning of this video, and this is where the financial picture becomes impossible to ignore. I am using midpoint figures for both builds. Barndominium upfront build cost midpoint, $140,000. Barndominium 20-year operating costs midpoint, $90,000. Barndominium 20-year total, $230,000. Earthship upfront build cost midpoint, $67,000. Earthship 20-year operating costs midpoint, $17,000. Earthship 20-year total, $84,000. The 20-year total cost difference between our barndominium and our Earthship, approximately $146,000 in the Earthship's favor. That is not a small number. That is the cost of a second home. That is the cost of a child's complete university education. That is the cost of 20 years of financial freedom that the barndominium owner is spending on utilities, fuel, and maintenance while the Earthship owner is not. The barndominium advantages that the numbers do not capture. I want to be genuinely fair to the barndominium in this comparison because it has real advantages that the financial analysis above does not fully capture, and any honest assessment needs to acknowledge them. Speed of construction is a genuine barndominium advantage. A contractor-built barndominium can go from foundation pour to move-in in 4 to 8 months. An owner-built Earthship typically takes 12 to 30 months. If you are paying rent during your build period, every additional month adds rental cost that belongs in your true project comparison. A builder paying $1,500 per month in rent who takes 24 months to complete their Earthship versus 8 months to complete a barndominium is adding $24,000 in rental costs to the Earthship column that the upfront cost comparison does not show. Financing accessibility is also a significant barndominium advantage. Conventional lenders will finance a barndominium using standard construction loans and mortgage products because it uses recognized construction methods. Getting financing for an Earthship is significantly more difficult and in many cases impossible through conventional channels, meaning Earthship builders almost always need to self-fund or use non-conventional lending at higher rates. If you do not have cash savings to fund an Earthship build, the Barndominium's financing accessibility is a decisive practical advantage regardless of the long-term economics. Resale market and liquidity are stronger for Barndominiums in most markets. The resale market for Earthships is smaller and more specialized. If you need to sell your home in 5 or 7 years rather than holding it for 20, the Barndominium may be the safer choice for maintaining and recovering your investment. Climate flexibility is real. The Barndominium with conventional HVAC performs adequately in virtually any climate. The Earthship's passive solar thermal mass advantage is strongest in climates with adequate winter sunshine and significant day-to-night temperature variation. In consistently cloudy, cold, wet climates, the Earthship's operating cost advantage narrows and in some cases nearly disappears. Who should build each one? Based on everything in this analysis, here is the honest assessment of who each option is right for. The Earthship is right for you if you have the time and physical capacity to contribute significant owner labor, if you have or can acquire land in a regulatory-friendly jurisdiction, if your chosen climate is suitable for passive solar design, if you have the cash to self-fund your build without conventional construction financing, if you plan to stay in the home for 10 years or more, and if you genuinely value off-grid independence as a lifestyle feature, not just a financial calculation. The Barndominium is right for you if you need to move into your home within 8 to 12 months, if you cannot contribute significant owner labor and need a contractor-built solution, if you need conventional construction financing, if you are building in a climate that is not well suited to passive solar design, if you may need to sell within 5 to 7 years and need strong resale liquidity, or if you want the lowest hassle path to rural homeownership even if the long-term operating costs are higher. The honest conclusion. The Earthship wins the 20-year financial comparison decisively in the right conditions. The Barndominium wins the convenience, speed, and financing accessibility comparison decisively. Neither option is universally better. They are optimized for different households, different circumstances, and different definitions of what financial success in housing looks like. What this comparison should change for you is this. If you are considering a Barndominium primarily because you have never seriously calculated the long-term operating cost difference, do that calculation for your specific situation before you commit. And if you have been dismissing the Earthship because the upfront build process sounds too difficult, calculate what 20 years of utility bills costs you and ask whether that difficulty is worth the number you arrive at. The money is real. The difference is real. The question is which version of real fits your life. If this comparison gave you numbers you have never seen laid out this clearly before, please hit the like button because it helps this content reach more people who are making this exact decision right now. Subscribe for more honest financial analysis of alternative housing options in 2026. Drop a comment below and tell me which option fits your situation and why, because I respond to every comment and I want to know where you are in your thinking. See you in the next one.